Changes in the regulatory environment and recent court cases have meant that the patent environment these days is much more complicated, not to mention expensive. But here in Asia, we're really only just getting going, with three critical developments being discussed here at IPBC Asia in Tokyo. The first is from defense to offense, with a number of Japanese companies going away from just using patents to protect their research and development investment to proactively generating revenue from it. Second, we're going from a export to an import model, particularly for Chinese companies. In other words, rather than just exporting goods, they're now importing patents from the United States in order to further their own innovation in design and branding. And third, from hands-off to hands-on. The regulators throughout this region are becoming much more proactive in terms of developing, slowly but concretely, their own fair regulatory environments that learn from the mistakes in the United States and Europe.
I think what you're seeing here in Asia is a maturation of the market. We saw that, of course, in Japan first, when it converted from an export-based economy to a consumption-based economy. Korea followed, Taiwan followed, and now I think we're about to see that in China.
Even 8 years ago, China wasn't quite at that level of technology, but now local Chinese entities are really catching up fast, and they're accelerating and they're leapfrogging some of the international competitors.
With Chinese companies looking to become generators of intellectual property, not just consumers of it, this has brought about a change in mindset.
You know, we are in Tokyo and we've heard speakers from China, and they admitted themselves that at the beginning they were, just quantity oriented. And they recognize now that they're moving into the quality and they are issuing and putting a lot of efforts to issue quality patents. They invested a vast amount of money in patents because they see patent filing outside. They file their patents, and now they want to make use of their investments. It's really like the copyright industry. 10 years ago, the first companies wanting to have strong copyright environment in China were actually Chinese content providers. It's very surprising, but they actually pushed and established a right copyright environment in China. You see exactly the same at the moment for the patents in China.
This has led to an increasingly sophisticated regulatory environment.
You know, there was a sentiment 10 years ago where Asia didn't know anything about IP and everybody was kind of talking down. I think that's long gone. I mean, they are coming up with good solutions or attempting good solutions on handling many issues that are out there that I think are perplexing the legislature and regulators in the US or Europe.
The next move, and they are claiming this, is to get a proper enforcement environment in China and also in Japan and in Korea. This is a similar discussions. They want, the right enforcement environment to value, to make use, to monetize their quality assets.
Over here, I think they've taken a more pragmatic view on how do you do something that protects the invention holder appropriately, doesn't allow for damages that are excessive or royalties that may be excessive. So every country is doing it a little bit uniquely, and I think they're being careful about how they do that, being more pragmatic in some ways. And I think we're going to end up with some results here that maybe should be mirrored in other parts of the world.
They've certainly made a lot of strides in the last couple of years, especially with the establishment of the specialized patent courts in 3 cities. And so I think you're going to see more enforcement in China, and I think it's going to be more enforcement with NPEs along with everybody else. They are slowly developing those courts, and I think they're still learning. I think they're still talking about making some changes, refinements to the system, and of course they can do it much more quickly than can happen, say, in the United States. It very well could be that deters some people who are in it for just the litigation and not trying to actually license quality patents to companies in China.
Asian Pacific market, is rapidly growing. I guess one of the reasons is that U.S. law or legislation has changed in a way somewhat unfavorable to patent owners. So U.S. Investors thinks that patent is not the right area to invest money. So I think there are many competition among NPEs right now.
Now, despite this, non-practicing entities are increasingly setting their sights on Asia. And that's the subject of our next installment in the series from IPBC Asia in Tokyo.